Hey guys, this is JP, aka The Demon, your host for Lit Literature. And I just wanted to kind of give a foreword to this episode 1 and just say, first off, thanks for checking out Lit Literature. And second off, we're kind of starting this podcast off talking about the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson. And the third book was just released this month. And as we've never podcasted before, we decided to use books 1 and 2 to kind of figure out our method and approach. And so really episodes 1 through 8, which focus on book 1, are a bit of a practice for us. We're kind of feeling it out. If you're already a mature reader, well ahead of book 1 and 2, and you don't feel like going through those particular episodes, just wanted to let you know, feel free to jump ahead to the episodes we are recording shortly, which will be focused on the new book, book 3. And unless you want to kind of follow the process of development on this podcast as we kind of move through the first 2 books, it may be a good refresher for you. We start a lot of the games, kind of figure our format out, and you kind of get to know us. But just as a warning, we are kind of figuring out how that's, I guess we're just trying to figure out how to best do this as we're beginning podcasters. So anyway, appreciate, again, thanks for joining Lit Literature and listening to us. And feel free to check out books 1 and 2 as a review. And if not, jump into book 3. And I think we'll be significantly better in format by that point, but still could be a lot of fun. So anyway, without further ado, we'll get started.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're here today for Lit Literature with the Shoutouts. That's going to be not just a working title, but our actual title.
Nice.
And we're here to talk specifically about literature while drinking very good wine, ale, maybe beer.
Ale.
Sometimes other things. But
I've got my mead.
Yeah, or mead if you want.
Tequila.
And specifically, we're going to be talking this fine podcast day about Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings, book 1 of the Stormlight Archive. Book 3 will be coming out later in November, and we want to reread this for some of us, and some of us have never read it before, so we're going to kind of follow through the beginning books until we catch up to the new one and talk about all the insanity involved in it. We are, crew name, Shoutouts. We like to shout things out that we like. That's why we're doing this book. And I'm your host, The Demon, JP. Ooh. And then I'm going to turn it over to each one of you guys to give yourself a little introduction. And I might add some things in if I feel that you are short-selling yourself. So first off, online and from LA, we have good old Brett Williams. Go ahead, take over and tell us about you.
I am Brett Williams, codename The Director, because I direct things.
Especially us. Go ahead, Josh.
I'm the cherry, for obvious reasons, but I'm gonna be.
Oh, shit.
I've read this book before.
I didn't even see Josh. He's off to the side.
Oh, sorry.
He's like, hey.
All right, go for it, Cherry. Sorry, buddy.
Go ahead, Josh.
All right.
Come on, Cherry.
I introduced myself.
I'm Ben, the Hitman. I'm a long-time meter, first-time podcaster.
Yeah, long time murderer also.
He's our contracted hitman. My name is Captain Andrew. That is a military rank that I did earn. I'm definitely a captain.
His actual name's actually Andros. He's definitely a villain. And at life.
Why live life any other way?
I'm Aim the Dream, also known as Manny, and
And that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that was good. All
So
right.
you have a lot to say about yourself. That's a first.
And And it begins.
And it does.
Let the trolling begin.
Let the trolling begin. All right. So that's a little bit who we are, and I'm sure at some point we'll get drunk and talk about why we are called the Shoutouts. But right now, we're just going to kind of get into it. So basically, Stormlight Archive, this gigantic book one, The Way of Kings, is probably bigger than most fantasy book ones. I will say that it starts off with a prelude and a prologue, both. And a lot of people say that those are probably unnecessary, but for a book of a world this size, it probably is. We've already talked about it, so we're going to kind of just jump through that stuff because it's just, we've already talked about it. But let's just kind of really quickly give an overview on our thoughts. You start with Kalak, 4,500 years before the story, in a battle, or at the end of a battle. And it's pretty interesting. We basically get pounded with information. I think you guys would agree.
Yeah.
All kinds of crazy stuff, like
Overwhelming.
yeah, just
All kinds of terms
to trip
and-
our minds.
Desolation.
Yeah, exactly. Desolation. It's like they're reincarnated multiple times to fight an enemy. We learn a little bit about these sweet swords that are summonable, that have powers. Shard blades, surge binders, dustbringers, thunderclass. We basically don't know any of this crap yet, but we just,
Yeah,
we
and
just
the
figure
blades
out
that they talk about with them are supposed to be superior to even the
Yeah.
shard blades,
yeah,
which
so,
is crazy.
Yeah, and then so we get through that, and basically these guys, these ancient heroes who revive every, we don't know how often, but they revive in every so often during a desolation
Yeah,
to
every
fight
desolation.
a quote enemy, and then they return to this hell. And
Like place.
yeah, this hell-like place. And this hell-like place, they're tortured, and they basically said, fuck it, we're done with that. So normally, several of them die in the battle. Only one guy died in the battle. They thought it was a great time to basically book out.
And leave that one individual.
Yeah, and leave that one individual down in hell to keep whatever cycle's going on. We have no idea if he needs to be in there to keep this going or what, if they're immortal. I'm just kind of summing our conversation
Yeah.
up, right? Chime in whenever you guys see comments.
Foreshadowing evil, villain, main villain of story.
Right, and then they all peace out and go on vacation. Maybe a 4,500 year vacation. They might still be around. We don't know that yet. And Kalak and Jesna's the
Jezrien.
Awesome. Jezriem, that's it.
Jezrien.
Jezrien, the king.
Am I saying that right?
I don't know.
I mean-
I can't remember.
The other guy's
His name
name
is Telenel.
They pronounced
Telenel?
it Yezrien. and
Yezrien, that's it. Yezrien, the king, or they're kind of like pseudo leader, I guess, of these heralds, these leaders. They
Well, he's a, I think, former prince. So
he's a
Yeah,
he's
he
a
has
former
nobility.
royalty. Well, he basically says, just tell them we won. Just
Yeah,
tell them we won.
they won't know the difference.
They won't know.
They'll all
So-
be dead by the time they get out again.
Yeah,
They
so
said maybe it'll end up being true.
yeah, and they walked out. So that's where we start after the prelude, and we're like, oh shit, I don't know how that
Although
feels.
judging
'cause-
by how thick this book is, I doubt it's going to be true.
well, guys, that was it. We won.
That's the end.
Guess we don't
We
need
won.
10
Book over. 5 pages. Let's sell this shit.
Sell it. And then we get to the prologue, which is called, I think.
Well, also, I think really quick, Jeff, one thing that we talked about that I thought was interesting is just the fact that the one guy that died that they left behind, that they kind of abandoned
Yeah.
to say, we're not sure if he's going to come back and if he's still going to be a good guy. He obviously seemed like a really noble person that would just like charge in and take on like the impossible tasks. And we don't know if he's going to stay a good guy and kind of like do his his role down there, or if he's going to end up kind of coming back
resenting
as
these
a bad
people.
guy, which is something that we all kind of wondered about, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Like,
then
who wants to be the only person stuck in hell?
Exactly. He would
Yeah.
kind of be justified coming back and being a little
being
ticked
pissed.
off.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. Everyone went on vacation without me, and they stuck me in hell.
Yeah.
Reminds me of one of our buddies last night who thought we might have stuck him in hell and took a vacation in the corn maze.
And it wasn't even they just left him there accidentally. They were like, we just need one person to do this, so let's just leave him.
He just like gets back to hell and he's just like, all right, guys, when's the next desolation?
Yeah.
Guys?
Guys,
They did what?
Nothing but
as the devil comes and hooks him back up through his armpits.
Starts-
See ya,
Yeah.
buddy. What, guys? This is way more fun. No. Yeah, we had a funny. Just the comment I was making is last night, Brett. We didn't get to update you, and this does not have anything to do with the book. But we were drinking and finding our way through a haunted corn maze last night,
Which you've done
after
with
I
us
got out of
before.
work. Yeah, you've done that.
The one
one.
in DeKalb.
And
Yeah.
we brought John's wife with us the first time, and she's Japanese and super terrified of these kind of things. And while Andrew and I are running through the corn and hopping out and like trying to scare our own posse, we lost Brad, and we convinced Reiko that he basically is just lost, like he's gone. And we just can't. Nothing we can do about it. Meanwhile, we were trying to find him, but I don't know how.
No, we weren't.
We were.
shouted for him.
We were shouting a lot, and but he ended up not making it back to us. So that's kind of the joke that
We were
making.
looking for him. We were shouting for him. Same thing.
Same thing.
Our shout out powers were lacking that particular night.
And he was
So
a
basically,
little,
the guy they left behind will just refer to as Brad.
he was pretty ticked.
All right,
was pretty
moving on.
Yeah, sorry guys.
So wait, there's 10 guys. Also, we should clarify. There's 10 guys that are
10
immortal.
heralds, yeah.
Immortal. They're known as the heralds.
The heralds,
And
yeah.
the names of those 4 that we know so far are Kalak, Jezrien, Talinol, and Isar. Isar?
That might be right.
Isar?
Yeah, I can't remember, but you're
It's
close.
Isar. I don't know how you pronounce it in the books.
We'll get to it. We've got some audiobook guys, but it's been a while since we hit this, prelude and prologue.
But we don't know the 6 other people.
Throughout the books, we'll correct if we butcher your names, Brandon Sanderson.
We're so
we are
sorry.
so sorry, but we will correct it as we go.
We think they are cool names.
and also, lovely
just don't know
fans
how
of
to
the
say it.
books don't.
It's actually a silent ISA. It's just pronounced
Damn it. English language is such a bitch. Okay, so that was the prologue, and then we went to the prelude with the Szeth.
No, you mixed them.
I mixed them.
Yeah, you mixed them.
It's not my first language, I'm
Preludes
sorry.
first, prologue second.
My
Get
bad.
with the fucking program, okay?
So the prelude.
All right. Go ahead. Prologue. Hit it.
No, go ahead.
No, I want you.
So then we start off the prologue, right? Is that the
Yeah.
second one? Okay, I'm saying it right now. And that starts out with assassin by the name of Szeth. And he's known as a
Truthless.
Truthless.
Yeah.
which is very interesting. And he has some sort of internal struggle before he actually takes part in a physical struggle. And he's been commanded to do an assassination of a king.
Gavilar.
Yeah, Gavilar, which is really something that he doesn't really want to do, but we think, according to his internal struggle, something that he must do or has to.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's basically a slave to whoever owns him,
Yeah.
and his
Yeah.
master commanded
Someone
him.
who has a stone or
oath
something,
stone.
right?
His oath stone, yeah.
commanded him to carry out this assassination, do it in white so they see you coming, even though like his religion or the truthlessness is like it's a great sin to do, kill people, and he does really not want to do it. He welcomes death when he sees the shard blade. It's like maybe this guy can
take me down.
take me down, and end myself on.
But he also he has to do his best.
Yeah.
He
He can't
can't.
just take the sword,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's,
And it's revealed that the people who hired him belong to an ethnic group called the Parshendi,
yeah, the Parshendi.
who play a very significant role in the first several chapters of the
Yeah.
book.
Are you doing that on purpose?
Doing what?
Like the light keeps blinking on and off on you.
No, I'm not doing that on purpose. I'm really interested to find out. Now, some of you that have read ahead, I don't know if this is answered yet, but I'm really interested to find out if this is some type of magically bound or if this is morally bound.
I think
Yeah.
it's
Like,
magically bound.
If it's something that's cultural or within his own moral code that he has to follow his master, or if the oath stone or whatever actually
controls him.
specifically binds him magically or through some type of religion
So,
or
Brett,
something.
you just brought up something really awesome.
Do we want
And
to take wagers
I
on
think
this?
this is a wager time, and meaning, and also after we take this wager, because this is something we missed before. This is a perfect wager. We also have to review our previous wagers that we did in our demo sessions because they still hold weight in this podcast. So for those listeners, we are going to play some mini games during this that have real life consequences. And I think, Brett, we could take a bet on whether Szeth Sun Villano is bound by magic to his Oathstones, or
The plot
by
thickens.
by his
Honor.
cultural honor.
Moral or honor.
Yeah. And we may have more information in this one, so I don't know that we have the answer, but we should probably
Not guess.
Yeah, you guys should probably not.
So
guess. I agree.
we'll stay out of this one. So we'll leave it to you guys.
So these little mini games, now that you bring it up, and the way that you explained them is really interesting because you said these bets, right? And you said Brett's name before, so are we going to call these mini games Brett bets?
Brett Betts.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got Brett Betts going here. All right.
I am a gambler.
So so let's go Brett Bet game, and what it's going to be is what we just said. Is Szeth bound by the Oathstone through magic or just his own personal morality? And we'll start with Brett himself.
I am going to say that it is definitely some type of religious or magic bound thing that if he breaks it, something happens to him in the afterlife, or
He just does.
yeah, or even that it's just wouldn't be allowed. But I'm gonna guess something happens to him, like in an afterlife or something. Some type of actual magical punishment happens.
Okay.
Cool.
So Brett goes religious or magic bound. That's all.
Cool.
Yeah.
So the two options are magic
And
and
Morality.
Morality.
Magic or morality.
or just by his own
Right.
Morality. His own code. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. Hitman.
I'm gonna say by his own morality.
Okay.
Just because you like to be different, or because you really feel that way?
Both.
Okay.
Hitman says morality. All right. El Capitan. The drops.
Captain, I'm going to side with Ben and say morality. I have a quick bit of light to shed on that. In the chapter where he's reclaimed by the footpads, basically the cutthroats in that Iron Town, he feels honor bound to tell them that once they have the stone, he's now their servant. I feel like if he didn't do that, he could have just walked off and not been a servant of them. So I'm thinking it's probably strictly, deep within his religion to hold this honor code above all else, above everything else. You have to do this. So I'm thinking it's morality.
That's so interesting. 'Cause, like the way that he explained it, and what I read out of that situation was that he is magically bound to
that
say
same
these
scene?
things. Yeah, from the same scene. That's so funny. And I think being so because morally he's having an internal struggle about killing this person. Mm-hmm. So why would he do it if killing is against his actual beliefs? I think it's more so magical. Like this even goes against is stronger than who he is. It's something that has control over
Nice.
his actual life.
All right. So
We could also run into a bit of a conundrum where, which is it? If he thinks that it's a religious duty, does that make it his morality? Like even if that religious thing, like even people in real life, let's pretend just for the sake of this that all religions are not real. I'm not saying that's the case, but let's just pretend. Mm-hmm. The people that are living by those religious codes, are they living because they think something religious and magical is going to happen to them, or are they judging by their own moral code? So they kind of influence each other. So if his morale is dictated by his religious beliefs, then do we count that as a religious magical reason or a moral reason?
Well, I think the defining factor should probably be
Magic.
Can he break it without consequences that he's putting on himself?
Yeah. We could say, will there be a physical penalty or a spiritual penalty? One.
Or a perceived spiritual penalty.
Right,
Even if it's
yeah.
not real. If he believes it to be real, then that's, in my opinion, spiritual
Right.
and magical.
Well, he does believe in that afterlife, right? So he's thinking about it that way.
Yeah.
But then that is a gray area. That's a tough one. So
We might all be drinking.
Yeah, we before we cheers on the final bet, I say that we define it real quick.
Okay.
And so we should probably clarify it this way, so that there's no gray areas. Because what's the worst case? I mean, you lose a bet, whatever. You gotta drink something probably. We'll discuss that next. But let's say magically bound means he has no will, right? Like he has to, literally, he is compelled to do it
And he has no
Against his
choice.
wishes.
against his wishes, and it would be even if he decided to screw his religion and go to hell, he still couldn't break that because he's magically bound. Whereas if the morality or cultural / religious side, so you kind of have to pick.
He has
one.
choice.
Yeah, he has choice. Even if the choice has consequences, as it always does. If the consequences mean you are punished by your deity or something, that still has the choice, right? He can break it if he so chooses to be punished by his deity.
So then, really, the question is, does he have a choice or not?
Yes. Does he have a choice
Yeah.
or not? So let's.
I'm
simplify.
gonna stick with no, even though I feel like it could be either.
Okay.
I'm gonna stick with no.
That's
he
fair.
has no
That's a
choice.
tough
when
one,
it,
right? That's
when
tough.
it comes to killing himself specifically.
That's tough. I
I'm
agree.
gonna stay with my choice as well and say no.
Same here.
Okay.
I'll
Saying
stick
he
with
has
mine.
a choice.
All right, we're
all
sticking.
more.
So now the wager. Who? And I think, Dross, you came up with this idea, right? Wager?
Doing the drinks where if
Well, no,
one
so,
team.
So now that we have our answers, now somebody's got to put the wager down on the table.
Oh,
I thought we were doing the same wager for all bets. Or we doing
Yeah, the wager should just be the same every time.
Oh, really? Like, so
One drink.
But that's kind of boring. So, like, sometimes I think people should, like, double down on their wagers, like, if they feel really confident on a bet. So I think for this one, let's say Brett, we'll make Brett this is his first Brett bet. So you get to pick the wager. Like, if you lose or win, what do you get? Or what
All
do
right,
you
since
do?
I'm not so confident, it's just gonna be like one drink,
okay.
one full drink.
Timing. And since we're all getting a little old and we don't pound things
And
like
two
we're in college
push-ups.
anymore. And 2 push-ups. Okay.
push-ups.
Okay. So if you lose this challenge, you will now have to drink 1 drink in 1 minute and do 2 push-ups.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Sound good?
Yeah.
All right.
Deal.
Cheers.
Oh, we're definitely gonna have
Boom.
somebody throwing up on this podcast.
Yeah, let's hope Josh isn't the one that loses.
All right. So now, speaking of that, let's do a quick review on our previous bets. So in the prelude and prologue, we have 2 outstanding bets that we're also going to honor. The first one is whether the heralds, the 10 champions that continuously return, made a bet in the hell to get this power, or made their oath pact, in the hell or outside of the hell. I think Brett was the only one who said inside. The rest of us said outside. Is that accurate, Brett?
Yeah.
It's like crap.
That sounds correct.
Well, we're gonna hold that one, and that wager was a beer and a glass of wine.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the second wager was
Was time
Why-
happening linear or
cyclical.
time.
Cyclical.
Let me do that one. Time in this book, linear or cyclical? And I think I said linear, even though there's cycles. Whoops. Even though there's
Jeff said
cycles.
linear. Josh said cyclical. Andrew linear. Manny cyclical. Me linear. And that's it.
And
I'm gonna
we
go-
gotta get Ben.
I'm gonna go linear too.
Ben
Linear.
wasn't there.
All right, Ben's
Yeah.
now
Linear?
in.
All right.
Ben says linear. Jeff and Brett. And then and Dross. Captain.
I was also linear.
Captain. All right, and then cyclical.
And I would also recommend everybody that's listening, you should probably get a piece of paper with your wagers as well and follow along and do some wagers with us. Because I know if you're drinking or not. Not really.
That's a great point. And we don't know if you're drinking, but if you are, and you're joining us for lit literature, you should probably get lit with us and do these challenges.
If you're 21.
Agreed.
If you're of age.
If you're not, then don't. Do whatever.
If you're not, then get some Kool-Aid.
yeah, Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's more
Because Kool-Aid is
poisonous.
cool.
That's
Yeah.
more poisonous.
Super cheap.
Get that sugar. All right.
So yeah, Kool-Aid's pretty poisonous.
Yeah, well, it's okay.
Well, there
do
goes our
Kool-Aid.
Kool-Aid
Nobody knows what
sponsorship.
flavor.
Jerk.
Now we'll never attract the big wigs at Kool-Aid.
Come on, man.
There goes one sponsor.
Shit, guys.
Thanks, Jeff.
Who's Kool-Aid's number 1 competitor? Because that shit is not poisonous.
Crystal Light.
Juicy juice. Juicy Juice. Do you exist still?
Yeah, it does.
Juicy Juice exists.
Yeah, it still exists. Juicy Juice.
Oh my God.
If you want.
All right, back to the book, guys.
Yeah.
All right, you're right.
Let's go into chapter
Good job,
1 now.
director. Keep us. All right, so now we're through this. So anyway, just real quick. So Szeth, son Fulano, goes to kill the king. We find out about his abilities, which we have the abilities in terms of the magic system. So we find out about shard blades, where you could summon a blade out of maybe another dimension we don't know yet, and it takes 10 heartbeats. It could cut anything that's not living. And then when it hits something living, it doesn't cut them physically, it cuts their soul. So if you get cut in the arm, shit, that arm is gone. Then you find out that there's shard
So your arm is
plate.
still attached, but
Yes,
your arm is
correct.
Yeah.
useless.
Oh yeah, thanks for correcting me
Nerves
because
are
I
essentially
said
severed.
gone.
Yeah.
Right. What would I do without you? Even the dream. Anyway, but very correct. Your arm is still there. Exactly. So then we've got shard plate. Shard plate is Stormlight powered armor that can take multiple hits from a shard blade. That's kind of important because you're not one hit KO'd
But
essentially.
it's not invincible armor against regular attacks either. It can take a certain amount of punishment.
It can take a lot of
And then
punishment.
it
yeah.
breaks, but
It'll get chipped.
it can reform after a certain period of time.
Exactly. And then it
It also
gives you
enhances your abilities,
Strength,
like
your speed.
Thank
speed
you.
and strength. So yeah.
Exactly. Even the dream, you got it right.
We also learned about thrashing, which is basically just without
Lashing,
the
you
need
mean?
of physical
Lashing.
lashing. I'm sorry,
Actually,
thrashing
children attack.
uncontrollably.
Thrashing, which is what the king did right before he died.
It's a magic power only few have.
Yeah, you control the Stormlight, and you don't need a shard blade or any kind of weapon. You can just bend the Stormlight to your will.
And there seems to be rules around this will that we don't fully understand yet. So Szeth, son Villano, as he was going to kill the king, he described different types of lashings he was able to perform that set him up to, control, I guess, gravity. It seems to be his power, gravity,
yeah.
in a certain way, right?
Yeah.
So one lashing was to make him go up, gravity.
Basic
the
lashing,
basic, yeah.
which changes your the direction of gravity.
Perspective, your gravitational perspective.
Right.
Yeah, he was able to elevate himself.
That's
That's the same. Actually.
I think that's the same. And then there's
Yeah.
complete or full lashing,
Where he puts it into something else, and,
and
then
it
that has
like
gravity.
it kind of like
It sucks everything
It's a-
to it.
It's a basic lashing or gravitational change, which is the one that he did to like suck himself up.
that's the change
And
of direction.
then the other one is the full
Full.
lashing, which is binding
Things
different
tightly
objects
together. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then reverse.
And then the last one, the third one, was
something its own
reverse lashing,
gravitational
which
pull.
is giving an object its own gravitational pull.
which was so cool.
Yeah.
Which seems kind of similar-ish because other things will be attracted to it, but
Yeah. It's anyway. We're so.
Well, no, I think like the full lashing is you lash something so like its atoms are kind of like stronger. So like you can make a door stronger. As opposed to like being able to get knocked down right away because everything's getting close.
Oh,
everything's
okay, I
being pushed
gotcha.
closer and closer together. Whereas opposed to like the reverse lashing, like I'll touch this, but I have to continuously touch this, and things are gravitating
Gotcha.
to it.
to it. Yeah.
yeah, that makes more sense.
And I think basic is like average amount of Stormlight. Full is the most, and then reverse is the least. But you have to be continuously touching the object.
Yeah.
So each one has its own limitations.
Yeah, and so just to clarify real quick, Stormlight, right? Jerry, I think you talked a lot about this before last time we were talking. Stormlight is this light in this world. Could jump in when you.
Yeah, so Stormlight's how they're able. It's a source of magic, so it's their crystals that are able to hold energy that come during these weekly or these storms that happen on a regular basis, and they get infused with Stormlight, is what it's called, and it's used as a light source in the world as well as a source for magic and energy. Even though a lot of people don't seem to have the ability to use the magic right now.
They don't even
It's
know
a-
about it, right? They said these people don't even remember that.
Yeah,
this is
and they're using. They even
possible.
Szeth said they're using these sacred like items as mere adornments in hallways
Or
to
light.
light the way.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting concept to use. That's saying that this is also their currency form. So not only does it provide light, but it's used to buy things. So it essentially comes with the connotation that the wealthy are the people who have light and also have access to this magical energy that, like, a poor person isn't going to have the light. They're not going to be able to afford that type of stuff or to afford to have light, and they have to use these primitive means like fire and stuff.
Right. And
It also kind of made me think that Szeth could potentially be like extremely dangerous if he wasn't somebody's slave. Like if he was working by his own will and he was an unhonorable person, he could just like, it seems like, I don't know if this is how it works, but because he was able to pull from the lamps.
Yeah.
So he was able to pull the energy from the lamps when he did his lashings. Like it seems like he's almost like a magical hacker where he could just like walk through towns and pull the wealth from people's pouches as he's walking through.
He could, but he can only hold it for a few minutes before it dissipates from
Yeah,
him.
it does.
I
Start
wonder
to
if he
leak.
can put it into another container, into another glass or whatever container to make it valuable.
It is
well,
possible,
maybe
yeah.
that's something that has to do with the fact that these cultures have these gems as currency that also hold Stormlight. So, like,
Exactly,
maybe that
right.
has something to do with it. Like, they may not understand it now, but maybe it's currency because it was important for you to be able to store Stormlight, because when you used it, you only had a few minutes before it would start leaking out of you. So you had
It's
to
like a
have
battery reserve pack.
You need to have like battery reserve packs, and now they trade it.
Oh, that's such a good point.
So it's just
I
like
didn't think of that about, like, they forget why it's
they don't know, right?
valuable.
They don't.
They just
remember
know that it
anymore.
is.
Yeah, because nobody knows about this lashings. Nobody. He seems to be the only one. He's walking through this entire castle. He's like, these people don't even know.
Don't
like,
the what are they? The something
is-
casters, soul casters. They
soul
use-
casters use the gems.
Yeah, they
and then
use
the
it-
same as the armor.
But
has
those are
gems
through
in there.
fabrials, or what they're called. Fabrials, where they're not actually anything that a person's doing. It's an item that was, they're supposedly historical items that
Yeah.
were created eons ago that have this amazing magical power.
Well, but now they're reproducing them,
And
right?
they're
But we don't
trying to
know.
perfect
We don't know all of
But,
that yet. Yeah, we don't
Those
know.
well, this is a theory, but not everyone is able to use the magic in the system. So they made these devices so normal soldiers could use them on the field, maybe.
Yeah.
And they only have a limited
would make
amount of
sense,
charges before they'd have to get recharged
Yeah,
from
it
the
makes
stones.
sense.
So that could mimic an actual magic
Yeah.
user. to a
Sanderson's
degree.
definitely setting us up for a big like system here. You could just tell. I mean, this is like he's got the plate and the stormlight and the shard blades and different lashings, and this is all just in the freaking
Yeah, it's everywhere.
So, so real quick, we are going to take a quick break here, and then we'll continue episode 1 here of the podcast, and we'll be back in a few. We're on again, and this is part 2 of episode 1. We just had to have a break because we needed to refill our goblets, all that stuff that
Alcohol.
Kool-Aid. I mean Kool-Aid. This is literature after all.
Wait, do we have to
No, we don't have to do anything.
turn the labels away from the camera?
So moving on, we're past the preludes,
Yeah.
we're past the prologues,
All
we're
right.
past the forewords, we're past the everything
Yeah.
before the story.
Exactly. So
Finally
now we're
getting
on the story. Except for the one thing that I will say that I forgot to say, I know I have to go back, is that Szeth's son Villano did kill the king. He killed him, and then the king had him write, the key word is write, a message to his brother about find those important words or some
The
shit
most
like that.
important words a man can say.
The most important words a man can say. So,
Oh man, how did we forget about that? Those are literally the most important words
I know.
a man can say.
So we do know that the king died, and then that message was left. Szeth also, the king gave Szeth something important that he didn't want other people to find. He thought that another assassin was coming for him. He found out that the Parshendi killed him, and he was kind of like, what in the hell?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense, but whatever. Take this and keep it out of the hands of his enemies. So that's it. That's all we know. Correct? Anything
Yes.
to add before we move on?
Nope,
Correct.
I think that's about it.
All right, so then we move on to the real story, and that is 5 years after this assassination. And we meet
Kaladin.
Kaladin Stormblessed.
Kaladin.
Stormblessed. That's true. And that's what not the episode. Jesus, I'm gonna mix up episode and chapter constantly.
That's what the chapter's named.
That's what the chapter's named. It's also what Kaladin's named. Kind of nicknamed. So, I don't know, I kind of want to tee this up, but it basically starts off where you're following a kid, right? Mm-hmm. A new kid who's a soldier and he's freaking out.
Sen.
Sen?
Sen.
I was like, oh, not Zen, because he's an assassin.
That's Szeth.
Oh, fuck. You're
Bless
right.
you.
I ruined it. Ben, we recorded your awesome Hitman sneeze.
Oh yeah.
He just took somebody out.
That's what happens every time the Hitman sneezes.
So
he
how
took somebody
old
out,
is
and we
Sen?
know.
Sen is
14?
15.
15.
Okay, 15, and scared out of his wits, right?
Yeah.
And then he finds himself in a military camp that the squad, I guess, is run by this guy named Kaladin, who's actually our character, even though we're not reading through his perspective, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But apparently he buys with his own money young kids for some reason.
That sounds really bad.
Yeah, no,
It does.
But
we need to tell that. Right?
For some reason, he buys.
He recruits. He recruits the younger soldiers.
So what he does is he bribes other
certain
squads. He bribes other
reasons.
squads to bring these young soldiers over to his squad, so that basically he's kind of got a soft spot for them, right? And not in that way, but in the way that he wants to save their life.
You're not making this sound any better.
Damn it! Stop!
He recruits younger soldiers because he's kind of protective or
Yeah.
wants to help them
I'm just
become
going
stronger.
to say that something about them reminds him of his younger brother Tien.
Which we're starting to learn a little bit about
Yeah.
as we're reading through these chapters.
And Kaladin is also quite young himself.
He is.
He's only like 18 or 19, right?
18, I
He's one of the youngest
19, I
squad
think, right?
commanders.
Yeah, something like that.
So, but he's like a super badass. Like even the old gruff sergeants really respect him,
Yeah.
and they call him Stormblessed because he's super lucky. And people who are in his squadron die a lot less than other squadrons. Yeah. So
And he fights like a storm
now,
with a spear.
Yeah,
do we
he's
know,
fights-
is he a dark eye or a light eye?
He's a dark eye.
He's of the
He's a part of
third,
it.
right?
He's
Yeah.
a part of Team TDH.
He's of the
Tall, dark,
third
handsome,
Dawn, but he actually has light hair,
yeah, no, his
Pretty
hair
sure
is
it's like
brown,
lighter hair.
almost positive.
He's the
his
third
hair's
Dawn.
brown.
He's like a
He's
higher.
No, that's like a.
Remember the highest,
The citizen
the best
level.
thing that you could have in this particular world is
Dark
extremely
hair.
light eyes, but very dark hair. And his surgeon family's a higher Don than a lot of like farmers and some other people, but apparently status is often based on
Success.
Eye color.
Almost.
eye color,
Oh, eye color.
success. Well, it can be success, right? Because even people with quote dark eyes can rise the ranks
They can-
and improve their
Also marry into a light-eyed family who's kind of on the lower end of the stuff.
Yeah.
And to become a light-eyed. But it seems like if you're really successful in life, you can gain ranks up to a certain point.
and then
If you're dark-eyed.
it's what is it called?
There's
The ninth
limitations,
Dan or
definitely.
something? Ninth Dan?
Dawn.
Like
There's
kind of like martial arts in a way, right?
well, but I think they're reversed because they're like the higher level Dawn, the more lowborn you are.
Is that how it was? Because
So
I
if you're
I
nine-
thought
'cause
that
he's third Dawn.
I think the
I
lower
thought-
down is the better.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Because
Yeah.
I, for some reason, I'm remembering in a Dalinar, the first Dalinar, one of their soldiers, one of the generals, he's a ninth Dan. He could even marry into a light eyes.
Yeah, I thought I remember the opposite
So,
as well.
I
That
thought
the
it was
higher the
higher.
Don, the better.
I thought
No,
higher
that's
the.
saying he's.
We'll have to check this. We're obviously not. We don't have all the facts, but regardless, the system itself is kind of. It's based on how you look. There's not. It's based on how you look, but there is ways to elevate yourself, even if you're a lower status, and by lower status that means apparently in this world that you have dark eyes.
Yeah.
And then
So basically, it's exactly like real life.
yeah,
Fuck you.
in a way.
Well, you can imagine too how that makes a very interesting social structure where, like, not only is marriage important, but you also have to marry someone who's physically looks a certain way
And
because
we don't-
that's going to ensure that your kids have a higher chance.
and
to be
we don't have a
light-eyed.
full understanding of why that is yet, right?
Well,
at this point.
I think there's a few really
There's
cool
some hints,
examples.
but-
Is some of the stuff that they say is if you get a shard blade, your eyes turn light. So there's
Is that always the case, or is that just some?
Well,
that's
that's
a lot
what
of people
they said.
think it's something that's just used to get like the low, like give dark eyes a chance to believe that they can rise in rank, and it kind of like gets people to think that they can like move up in the world. Maybe it's a false hope, but I'm wondering if maybe it's true that when you do hold a shard blade, your eyes turn a lighter color, and that could be a remnant of the olden days when more people had those swords and they were considered, if you had the sword, you were royalty. They just misconstrued it and now think that it wasn't having the sword made you royalty. It's just if you had light eyes, you were royalty. But everyone who back then who was royalty had a sword.
But interestingly, we don't know. I guess we don't know yet because we don't. Right now, all the characters we know of that hold a blade are light eyes, except there was no indication that Szeth, Son Villano's eyes changed. He has a shard blade.
In the later chapter, what talks about him, it talks about his eyes.
But what chapter was that one again?
It's in.
That's
15,
you're a little
maybe.
further.
I'm
I don't
not
remember
past
15.
20.
Because I'm on 22. I don't remember reading about Szeth again. Oh yeah, no, you're right. I did.
But I just
did.
know they have
When
really
he's in
big
the,
eyes.
When he's in he's been traveling.
Town.
We'll get to it when we get to it, right?
Yeah,
But
and also there's the conversation that happens when the little kids are like, have you ever seen anybody that's a dark eye get light eyes when he wins a shard blade or shard armor?
Yeah.
And no one's really seen it. It's just something, I feel like it's like a ploy to try to get people dark
to
eye.
like think that they
To
have
think
a
that
way
they
to
have a
elevate
chance.
themselves.
But I kind of feel that way too. But I also feel it'd be really hard for a dark eye to get a shard blade in the first place.
Yeah.
Seems like it'd be hard to get a shard blade from anyone if you
Yeah.
don't have another shard blade.
Because
How are you going to fight without armor? Shard
apparently
armor. or
you can
shard
win
blade?
them in battle and you claim them for yourself.
Well, if you beat a shard
Yeah,
bearer,
you
you,
could-
take their blade.
Yeah, so I'm saying like you pretty much already have a shard blade at that point.
Otherwise, how are
Because
you going to beat him?
Yeah.
And then if you're a dark eye,
Yeah, they actually mentioned
the
in this
light eyes-
chapter that it's probably only happened like 1 or 2 times in history, and
Yeah.
that it's like legend.
Right.
But
Yeah.
this
Almost
also
never
seems
happens
a
that
lot of
non-shard bearer.
Right.
like,
But then that raises the question for me.
discrimination against them. So light eyes might conspire against it and take it from before
Yeah.
you claim it.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
That just like you said, that's only happened like a couple of times, Brett. There's no acknowledgement or nothing in the story that makes me feel like people know those two situations that happened to make me believe that they ever happened. Like nobody knows who it
It's
was.
almost like they always talk about
if
it.
it only happened to two
just
people,
like
I
this
feel like you would
rumor,
know
right?
who those two people
Yeah,
were.
they would
The
be like
legend
legend.
of-
They would
and
be
they'd
like
be idolized.
they'd be like idolized. So it's kind of like this tapered down little like rumor that maybe guides people. But Ben, you bring up a good point because I mean now we're going to open the book a little bit, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to stick to. We should stick in the same zone, but we're talking chapter 1. The soldier. We meet Kaladin. He's this badass leader, and in the very next chapter, he's a slave.
Yeah.
And at the end of the battle, all you know is a light eyes shard bearer has
Shows
entered
up.
the battlefield.
And,
And so
yeah.
so Kaladin's squad just dominates. They do their thing, right, like they always do. And then the kid gets stabbed in the leg or something, right? And he's down. And then a shard bearer enters the battlefield, and then it cuts. And then the next chapter we're reading, it's like a year later or something, and Kaladin is a slave.
And
on a
all we know-
wagon.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think in the first chapter, it's not another shard bearer that shows up. It's a light-eyed armored warrior shows up, and
That's all
they
they
go
say?
to challenge him. We learn in the later chapters about the shard bearer.
No, they say that he is a shard bearer.
They say he's
No.
a shard bearer.
What's it? Kaladin kills the non-shard bearer in plate armor.
He
the Blight
killed
Lord.
him, but then they said-
when he killed him back,
That's when okay.
a shard bearer was cutting down
there.
his squad.
Yeah, he was cutting
And
down his squad.
Xian,
Yeah.
or Sen was like, "Oh my god, how can you fight this guy? It's like fighting the Almighty." When he looked at the
That's
shard
right.
bearer.
That's right. So see, they mentioned the shard bearer, but you're right. He killed the armor guy, and then they were back, and he's like, "Oh my god, it's like fighting the Almighty." As in, like this guy with this crazy armor and blade is.
And that you can't touch.
Yeah,
like he's
can't
nearly
touch him.
invincible.
and
And that was
that's
the end
it.
of the chapter.
That was the
And
end
then
of the
he's a
chapter.
slave.
Yeah. After that.
And there's hints of what happened in the next chapter about him. They say he deserted the army,
Yeah, that's what they say.
and that doesn't make sense. And then later, they're like, oh, there was a disagreement with his light-eyed superior, and like they betrayed him.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
we
it feels like
exactly
his
know
lighter
what happened.
superior like totally just like betrayed him
like-
so hard.
It's kind of where
There's
we're.
a lot of resentment.
There's
Definitely.
a lot of resentment for sure because his attitude towards light eye people is so he's just like they're all scum. They're not,
Yeah.
you know. It's really interesting. It changes. I feel like that Ben would put a hit on somebody right now in this situation. He just put a hit on him and would be, you know.
Ben would be Szeth, but without a master.
Yeah, right. Zen's holding his. Or excuse me. I called it Zen
Ben.
again. Szeth with his Oathstone. Ben's just holding his own Oathstone. This is cutting people down.
He doesn't
then,
even
like, as
disagree.
he's
He just
killing
laughs like
somebody,
a
he'd
crazy
apologize
man.
and just be like, "Sorry, my master made me."
Sorry, my master made me. He said jump.
Yeah.
He said jump. He jumps.
We also learn, I think we start to get, in the second chapter, we learn about the Windspren. That's kind of a little bit of like,
Spren.
fascinated by
Or
Kaladin.
following Kaladin, which is unusual because they're supposed to be very kind of like whimsical and short, like doesn't have a lot of attention. So they normally just come by and then drift off, and they're
And
gone.
how about the concept of Spren? I mean, I thought it was really cool.
So cool.
Yeah.
I thought it was really
Yeah.
cool. So there's it's like earth spirits, I guess, or like elemental spirits. that
Yeah, it
just
kind of reminded me
inhabit
of like Princess Mononoke.
Yeah, like, or like if you get scared, fear Spren.
Yeah. The more like
Fear.
Pain
emotional
spread.
based almost.
You're all- yeah.
Because it's like
Glory Spren,
glory
exactly.
spend. If
Fear
you're
spend.
feeling
But
very
I think it's-
logical.
Also, other things too. They seem to be
coming up.
almost everything because it's both an emotional as well as like physical things. Like they're water spren,
Yeah.
and then they're wind spren, the one that's kind of a bit or like a bit of a troublemaker, but
Creation spread.
creation
Yeah.
spren, like when
Yeah.
It's almost like spirits are. They may be categorized, but right now they're not,
Inspiration.
right?
Yeah.
Inspiration Spren, yeah. And so I think we get through Kaladin, we also immediately meet the other main character that we read about, which is Shallan. So I don't see
Who
what
is a baddie mother father?
Yeah, so you've got Kaladin, basically the soldier type. We don't know a lot about his backstory yet.
Dark eyes.
Dark eyes. Then we get a character, Shallan, who's a light eyes,
Privileged.
traveling over the sea to find a teacher because their family's in trouble. That's
Yeah,
basically what
pretty much.
Yeah. Become
So-
a ward.
Yeah, so like,
She's a redhead.
and that's actually something that she doesn't like, right?
Yeah.
Because she doesn't have the black
shows a bit
color.
impure.
She stands
Like-
out.
And it's interesting that some people who are light eyes, their hair doesn't really blend often. They tend to have like
Streaks.
streaks of black in their blonde hair or in their whatever
like
hair.
this,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, or maybe they just have a whole half or something like that. So it's kind of interesting. People are obviously a little different in this world, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So
So was anybody else a little bit kind of by the end of the chapter a little bit confused about how they're supposed to feel about Shallan? Like she seems really cool and awesome, but she's like obviously there to like be a thief.
Yeah, I was
And she's
actually.
like being very deceptful.
I was.
I wasn't sure exactly how I felt about her, even though I kind of liked her. I was like, that's kind of a bitch thing to do.
yeah, go ahead, Captain. You got something.
I was gonna say I was very pleased to learn that because she
'Cause you're a bad
completely-
guy.
Well, she
You
completely broke through the stereotypical
Yes.
heroine role.
Yeah.
And she's like, ooh, she's there for other purposes. She's not just there to become a ward. You know, she's there to grift something from her for the benefit of her own family.
Right.
So
But
I mean,
even though it
I
sounds
definitely
really
liked it in
Yeah.
the story.
Yeah.
Like when I read that last line of that chapter, I was like, ooh.
yeah,
yes.
it created a whole.
But
other
as far as
element of
feeling about
tension.
her as a character, I was like,
I thought it was really cool. Like Andrew, I agree with you. I feel like it kind of breaks the whole stereotype of the heroine, but at the same time, it also kind of keeps it because she's not doing it just for herself. It's like she
Not
has
maliciously.
like an own like some sort of like family that she needs to keep together. So she's doing it for her like siblings and not just for own self gain.
Right.
But I mean, it's something that I think she's kind of like has to fight a lot for, and she's kind of showing like, hey, I did all this on my own, kind of a deal. And
She's definitely the baby of the family.
yeah,
Very
yeah,
sheltered.
Yeah, very sheltered, exactly.
very sheltered. Yeah,
So, and then so you get Kaladin, who's kind of trying to get his squad to the Shattered Plains, right, through battle. And then you have Shallan's quest where she's chasing down this teacher to become a ward, but ultimately to steal her.
her spellcaster.
Yeah.
Her
Fabrial.
Why?
Fabrial.
She's trying to get it because
Her father's Fabrial's gone, broken,
and he's dead.
and he's dead.
And they found out all kinds of dark shit.
And
that he was up
nobody's supposed to know that her father's dead because he has a lot of enemies and debts.
Yeah.
And they'll just collect right away once he's dead, and they'll go broke.
Yeah.
to the
to.
family.
I kind of like her
gone.
mouth too. I like.
Yeah, I love it.
Like she's just kind of like
Smart.
A quick tongue,
quick tongue.
very
Yeah.
witty.
Oh, yeah.
Really, what
Hanging
like,
out with sailors for too long. Right.
Well, she had it before that, but she wasn't able to act upon it because of her upbringing.
tutors and
Well,
teachers.
But now
that's
that's
her
sheltered,
brothers
right? Yeah.
when they like
encouraged her.
when they're by themselves and just like hanging out, they're like, "Oh, just tell us a story or something."
Yeah.
Like, and they
She's a very interesting character. I really enjoyed reading her story.
So she gets there, right? She gets to the town, I should say the country, I guess.
Yeah.
She's traveling to a country, although it's
a city country.
It's a city country, and it's kind of allied with the Alethi, right? And the Alethi are this royal area that we're kind of reading about. What is it? Alethea? I think it's called
Alethea. I think that's
So-
and I think Alethala.
Alethala.
I feel like the people of Alethala are a little brutish, in my opinion.
They're kind of like the
battle, like the knights.
the guys,
Definitely.
the Germans in
Definitely.
Skyrim.
Yeah.
They've got like these
kind of like
duels.
Vikings,
Yeah,
kind of a deal.
Yeah, learning about Eladin's whole court was very much a warrior-driven court. It's
Yeah.
not political in that it's more warrior-based, where if your biggest supporters and underlings have better battle prowess and can accomplish more in the battles than the other ones, then they get more power.
They get
and they're openly encouraged to very strongly compete against each other.
Duel.
So
Which
it's
is kind of
very
where you take back to Kaladin, right? Because that's why they're trying to get all this prowess on the battlefield. Because it elevates you.
You get
in
closer
status.
to the
Yeah.
main battle, which brings you
Yeah.
closer to an elevated
Alethi are
status.
definitely a war race.
warrior race.
Yeah.
And they believe that kind of like all life is just like a training ground, and conflict is going to elevate you, and you're going to train for essentially the afterlife,
Yeah.
where you're going to go and
join the
battle
heralds.
battle with the heralds against the darkness in whatever the afterlife is.
Yeah. It's your calling, right? They
Yeah.
talk a
Yeah,
little bit
calling.
about that. I don't want to get too.
And warriors of the highest calling.
Yeah, exactly.
Farmers are.
It's kind of a.
farmers are supposedly of a high calling too. Just
Yeah.
They're
under,
all- I think
just
they're-
under the soldier.
Yeah, farmers supposed
That's what
to be
they
high
say.
calling.
Yeah.
And
So it
obviously,
doesn't appeal that way.
It seems like you could, as a society, you could kind of encourage things that you need by elevating. Obviously, a farmer's a high calling because we all need to freaking eat. And if
Yeah.
you don't have farmers, you're not
Absolutely.
going to eat, right? So you gotta. If you make farmers like a low calling, everyone just goes to war. And you're like, yeah, we love it when people go to war, but
We have
we
no
gotta
food now.
eat.
So that could be a way of controlling, especially low-born
right.
people, to say like, hey, all of a sudden we want to advance our cultures or like our technology. So now education is a
I think
higher calling.
it's important to note that this war culture was very recently a bunch of different princedoms and was unified.
10, yeah.
10 princedoms unified by the king that
Gallagher,
our buddy
that just
Szeth,
died.
son Villano, murdered.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of interesting, right? So
Very.
his son's the king, but they're in a rule that's kind of these princedoms are not used to being
United
under one
systems,
kingdom.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting society. So
Very
even where Kaladin was fighting, right? They're technically fighting each other.
other princes
They're
that
fighting
are
other
on their-
people
yeah.
in the Alethi.
Because all the king and all the
Princes.
highest of the princes are out on the Shadow Plains.
Yep.
And so there's no one to check the kingdom when they get up to trouble.
Yeah, so they're just-
and like we want this land is having battles.
expanding some borders, and nobody's really around to monitor what's going on. So we have these two characters basically. Kaladin, who's now a slave, and he finds himself, surprisingly, his entire goal was to get to the Shattered Plains, and then as a slave, he's taken to the Shattered Plains. And you got Shallan, who tracks down Yezna, who's the sister of the king.
The ex-king.
Is it
No,
Death's king?
No,
the sister of the current king. She's the daughter of Galavar.
Who died by Szeth.
She is the daughter of
Villano's
Galavar.
blade. Yeah,
I
so
thought she was the sister of
she's the
Dalinar.
daughter. Yeah, so that means it's Dalinar's niece.
It's
So
sister of Elokar.
So she is considered a heretic because she studies sciences, and she was basically like, this religion's fucked.
Yeah,
whatever.
she's
Get out of here.
She's
This is
awesome.
bullshit.
She's
It's
a
just controlling
bad
people.
mother father.
But even though she's a heretic, everyone tries to go and study with her
Because she's intelligent.
Number one, she's the sister to the king, so even though she's a heretic, there's not a lot
She's kind
that's
of
going to
immune
happen.
to that.
She's kind of
Yeah,
immune.
people can-
And then the second thing is she's just super smart. She
Very
literally
well
has spent her
educated.
entire life learning and studying, and so Shallan's going to study with her because, Shallan's actually interested in studying with her, but she really just wants to steal her goddamn soulcaster.
Yeah.
And that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, which
So-
is really interesting that they introduce the fact that reading and writing and education is more so of a woman's calling.
Men are just supposed to grunt and fight
And fight,
you know,
according to the
and lead
Alethal.
wars.
The Alethi.
So much so to the point that when she went to the bookstore, she was like, "Oh, he's probably just not reading in front of me because it would be offensive."
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would
Something
be
like
offensive.
that.
Yeah,
I was just like, "What?"
Shallan goes to the bookstore and that that
So
was
it'd be
good.
almost like it's a perverse thing that the man knows how to read, even though he's a bookstore owner.
Yeah.
But the woman who is the one who can actually read the books, it'd be perverse for her to sell things because that's a masculine.
It's a masculine
type
trait,
of skill.
yeah.
Right.
Well, the other thing is
So
the
weird.
captain. Shallan's like, I'm almost positive the captain can read because he has to, but you never show that you can read. Which brings us back to the prologue, where the message that the King Gavilar gave Szeth
To
on
write.
his deathbed,
To right.
instead of saying it, he just has him write it with
In his own
finger.
blood.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, Gavilar could write?
And that's
What?
like that's something that a lot of they immediately
What?
hid or they
Oh,
didn't want
man,
to
right, we gotta hide this shit. Hide
But it was
cover it.
Szeth that really knows how to write.
Yeah,
So Szeth
but
is
that's almost
clearly
probably
educated.
even more of a unexpected. Like that's less of
So
an option.
unexpected, yeah.
That's not what happened. They can't even believe that because he's the guy who killed him. Why
Yeah,
would he
yeah,
write
yeah.
a message for him?
Yeah. Right. So they really do believe that Gavilar wrote the message when he just said it, and then, oh man, it seems like a really interesting way to think about that.
And it's also building a
So
really.
not only did Szeth kill him, but he's also like, "All right, now I'm gonna make everybody think that you're feminine." It's like you're just twisting the knife.
yeah,
Yeah, but it's also interesting that I mean they're putting on so many layers of kind of this world that add a lot of intrigue and a lot of different things to think about, especially when you're trying to like look at it from a different point of view and how is all this inner working going to affect different people and communications and stuff, and especially when you start to talk about other lands that maybe don't follow the same type of systems, and that also brings it a kind of question when you're talking about how even in the current world how there are so many different cultures and how when you go to one world to another adapting to those type of cultures. So it's bringing in kind of from our point of view, we're looking at a whole world and everything just seems nuts, but to them it's normal and everyone else's stuff seems nuts.
Yeah, which is really interesting because what I found, which was really fascinating for me, I think, the Alethi find themselves to be so superior and like above Parshmen, which are like the lower, like the race that's kind of like
The
labor
slave
workers.
labor is almost
Like they feel like they're a little bit of brutes, but really the Alethi don't really think of anything outside of their own perspective. So in reality, they're really kind of a little dumb.
well,
in
they're,
my
they're
perspective.
definitely cultural centric, right? They are not looking at anyone else's perspective.
Yeah,
at
which
all.
really is
Like
unintelligent.
he's very
Zed-
close-minded, if
Zed-
not dumb.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're very close-minded. I don't think they're dumb.
It's a little-
There's definitely some smart ones, but they don't think from any other.
But I feel like the smart ones are
Cultural
people that
context.
are kind of looked or frowned upon.
yeah.
Like even the girl that's really intelligent, Jasna, is a heretic, and her,
Well, she's a heretic because she.
Yeah, but I mean her
dominated,
intelligence
right?
is kind of frowned upon, and that's what.
Well, but I don't
causes
think
her to
so.
be
I think the
Oh.
reason that she can be a heretic is because her intelligence is phenomenally praised, and she's also a woman. You know, if it was Dalinar who was phenomenally praised for being super smart,
they would it might not be
no, they
the same.
praise him for being the Blackthorn on the battlefield,
The
this
warrior.
badass warrior. You know, like you, even though he may be smart as hell, we're kind of learning that now.
Yeah,
But
it just seems ironic to me.
yeah, but it is definitely, and I think that's kind of what this is going to be. We're going to be learning a little bit about this culture, right? They've got these hierarchies, light eyes and dark eyes, and they've got this battle, war culture, and this feminine science culture. So it's kind of a combination, and both are, it's kind of like what's feminine. First of all, if you think about a traditional patriarchal society, you would never let the woman have all of the power in terms of education and reading and
all
writing.
of the knowledge.
They could literally influence everything that you're doing. So it's not necessarily a inequality thing. It's more like this activity is masculine and this activity is feminine, and then if you break that, you're done. But I mean,
I feel like it could be a little bit inequality thing. I feel like he's kind of in the book. He's kind of making you think about like feminism and our current world, like reflecting.
I think so,
in
but
this
I mean,
society as
if
well.
you think about it that way, though, I want to come into that a little bit, because I think like you give, if you're thinking about that and you want a patriarchal society, you're giving all of the power, like written messages, communication, knowledge, literature, every single thing that would give you power is there. Yet you're right. For some reason, they allow the traditional head of king or the husband does this, I do that. So it's still there, right? Like you're saying, that traditional kind of...
Well, I don't know if it's exactly only focusing on like feminine and masculine. Like if you look even at racial roles, like Shin are supposed to like never ever harm anybody. They even say it later chapters, not to get too far ahead of ourselves. Like, oh, he's a Shin, he wouldn't hurt anybody. Don't kill him. He can't hurt us. Yeah. But yet Szeth is like a badass assassin.
That's
like
literally what he is.
A murderer. It may not be of his own will, but he definitely can do it. He can definitely hurt people.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, I feel like a lot of people have been set up for roles and already counteracting those perceptions, and I think we're going to come across that probably a lot of these are the norms and these are people that don't fit the norms. And one thing I think is interesting is, are these people that we're meeting, are we meeting them because they're special? Like, do the norms actually need to be the norms? Like, do these people actually fit into these roles, and that these people are just kind of like breaking the mold? Or are these people like not breaking out of the mold, but they are just naturally this way?
Right.
Do you get what I'm saying?
I was exactly thinking the same thing. Like, why are we following these characters? Is it because they're characters that are breaking the mold, or they're characters that are just leaders, more so leader types that are willing to represent the other people that are like them, but don't necessarily have the courage?
All right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the more leader types, because once they make that step, they have to go beyond what they were and take on those other responsibilities, or at least acknowledge they exist. Mm-hmm. And even though, like,
they're somewhat a little uncomfortable with it themselves.
They have to figure out the balance of where they're at.
So we've got, I think we have a few people here that their favorite character so far is Shallan. Is that?
I love her.
Yeah. Okay. So I think maybe what we do is, because now the chapters are kind of intertwining, right? We're kind of going character here, character there. Let's just focal point on kind of a character and talk them through until we're cashed on it, and then we'll move on to the next, because their storylines right now, nobody's really connected, but we just have these characters, right?
You can kind of start to see some connections forming, but they're definitely in separate parts of the story right now that you're just like, how are they going to come together?
So right now we kind of feel like, all right, we're reading about 2 or 3 different
in the first 10 chapters, it's just the 2.
It's just Kaladin and Shallan, and then the second part of the book is
then we get into part 2. Dalinar.
Yeah. He's also one of my favorite characters.
Yes,
Dalinar.
Love him.
Oh man, he's
I love all the main characters. They're all very, very good.
Yeah. So I gotta say he's done a boss job at these characters, because
they're so well developed. Rich and
very rich.
They're so rich, but also I feel that every chapter I read, there's still growth being made.
Yeah.
Yes. So you're starting off these rich characters with these rich backstories, but they're not like stagnant. Every episode is kind of a challenge on them. I feel like every episode, every chapter is a challenge on them. So they have something to do or grow or be, or just pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So, but I think since you guys love Shallan, we should probably talk through Shallan. And
I don't just love her though. Like I'm honestly really, really enjoying all of the characters. But I feel like hers was the first character that I really appreciated, just because I felt like Kaladin's story, the way that it was done, it was really broken. So you kind of had to like piece it all together.
we're being hidden stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of it is being.
But
told.
I'll say that I think that although it's not as obvious, we're being hidden a lot from Shallan's.
Oh yeah. There's definitely the hidden part,
She
or like the
hints
darker
all
part.
of
Yeah.
the shit, like her
A lot of foreshadowing.
Her sketchy dad, who clearly had serious anger issues.
Yeah.
Her brother that disappeared.
Her brother, who we also read a quick. Didn't we read a quick chapter from?
The other brother that like
other
would tear
brother?
off the legs
He was
of.
tearing off,
Yeah,
but he
yeah.
seemed like a cool guy. Other than that, he was like
Yeah.
killing shit.
But never
like
like
to
human
relieve
though.
stress.
Very dysfunctional family.
I need to relieve stress. There's a lot of dysfunction there, and then we know from her talking to Yesna that she has a stepmom, right, or something like
Yeah,
that.
she was raised by her stepmom
Raised by her stepmom, and
because her mother died when she was young.
yeah, and also that
Didn't
her father.
Mom died too.
Maybe
Real
that's I can't remember.
She might have.
Yeah, I can't remember. I just remember that Yesna said like, oh, your step. Why didn't your parents like provide you this kind of education?
And I remember
she was
saying
like,
my mother died and then my stepmother
Yeah, but,
my mother
uh,
was limited.
Shallan was really surprised that the queen knew, not the queen, the king's sister knew
Nah.
her parents by name. 'Cause
She
she's from
knew
a
him.
very
Yeah.
minor family.
A very
so
minor
she's like,
family.
oh, your father.
Boom.
I
She-
can't
yeah.
think of his name. I guess I'm not that smart as her. But right off the top of my head.
Don't worry,
she
Ben.
knew-
It's a feminine art.
Oh, treated.
Yeah. So she like knew all the families and even down to the details who they're married to and
Yeah.
what's happening.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I like her character a lot, Jasna, but I feel like her character's definitely has a lot of
Arrogance.
potential. Yeah, arrogance, but a lot of potential to like crumble.
Oh, you think
Because
so?
she thinks so highly of herself, and Shallan, who's not even as educated as she is able to even prove her wrong instantly, which she kind of did not appreciate. At one point, when
Okay.
I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember she got irritated by the fact that Shallan
Gave her
like-
even the smallest amount of bad
retaliation,
Yeah.
but it was like her talking back to her was correct, so she couldn't really like say anything besides like get disgruntled by it. Like I don't know, I feel like there's she's putting the front.
I did
she's
kind of
very-
feel like some of that aggravation was like pressure other than that situation though, because she did kind of like come back and apologize and like something that I feel like somebody that thinks too highly of herself wouldn't do. She seemed to kind of humble herself later once she realized the mistake she made. But I still think that your analysis is correct. She could be ready for a
getting set up for
crumbling.
a crumbling, yeah. Which is
Yeah.
I feel like it's Shallan has a lot to learn from her, and I think she will. But I feel like she has the potential to surpass this woman because majority of her knowledge is really all based on her own achievement, as opposed to having the ability to and access to all the stuff that this other girl does.
She's done everything by herself, and she's also been sheltered, right? So she's kind
Exactly.
of digging for it, waiting for this opportunity. Something I want to bring up real quick because we're getting close to the end of episode 1 here. So we kind of got to. We're gonna. What I think we'll do is we'll follow Shallan through. Let's get this conversation going a little bit. Then we'll cut out for this episode, and we'll continue with Kaladin next episode, and then on to whenever we're done with that particular conversation.
Alright, so Shallan, does she have magic powers?
Oh,
Because when she looks at you, she'll blink, and that image is saved in her mind. And then later she can just draw it out. But then it's gone. Like she can't just draw it again.
But then also when she draws, like the painting itself has an effect on the people that see it.
It does. Yeah.
So I think this is a wager.
I think Ben.
I think this is
on
a wager. I think this is a wager. So I think
We just got a wager. We just got
So
a
Ben,
wager.
this is your wager. You literally started that statement as a question. So you said that you started that statement as a question.
And now it's time for a bread bet.
And now it's time for a bread bet. Exactly. All right, Ben, you get to make the wager.
Alright. We'll do a shot of whiskey.
Shot of whiskey.
Ooh,
Delicious.
All right.
love it.
Yum.
All right, shot of whiskey. And the question is, does Shallan have actual powers. That's correct,
Yeah.
right? Or
Magical ability.
Magical ability.
Something to do with the Stormlight or
Jeff and Josh, can you guys participate in this wager?
Cannot.
We'll hold off.
Oh
just tell me so I can win.
no! Shut up.
I'll tell you that it may be different than you're thinking. That's all I'll say.
I'm not saying it's traditional like the lashings, but it's some kind of ability of magic.
Well, make your wager clear.
Yeah.
Guy.
Oh, I did. She has.
Is she a great artist, or does she have
And
magic?
that's that.
All right, we're going around the chain. Ben.
She has a magic ability to.
All right, let me make this a little more complex. Is her ability dependent upon Stormlight?
Why are you winking?
I'm making this challenging.
That's a good one.
Is it that? That's a little more challenging, right? Because if we say like, does she have powers? Then everyone's going to say she does, because the reality is that she has this memory thing, and if that counts as a power, then
Okay.
Does
So
that
you're
make sense?
saying, does she have
I mean, like,
power that is used through Stormlight? Is her ability?
you know, I'm trying to make it a little more complex.
Is her ability based on Stormlight and using Stormlight? Okay.
Is that fair? Is that fair? I'm just challenging a little bit more. You know, making it a little more.
A little bit more.
I like it.
You're specific. Okay. I see what you're saying.
Because otherwise, you could be like, well, that's kind of a power. You know, it's a unique.
It's kind of a
ability.
yes, yeah.
Unique ability doesn't count as magic.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Unless it's dependent on the magic system that Sanderson set up.
But who's to say there's only one kind of magic in the world?
Boom, treated.
I'm not saying anything, but all of it's part of the magic system that he set up.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say yes.
I made it so much harder on Ben. He's like, God damn it.
Yeah. Well, I can't really kind of think, but yeah, I'll say it's
is
based on a magic system.
And uses Stormlight.
Magic system, because there could be a second magic system we don't know about.
A magic system that doesn't use Stormlight. Interesting. Okay.
I'm going to say yes. I think she has some type of power.
The director says yes.
2 for yes. I'm breaking the mold. I'm going to say no. You do bring up a really good point, Ben. I didn't actually consider that when I read those chapters where she was sitting in the alcove and sketching, doing those great creation sketches for, for her purpose. But I'm just going to say no. I think maybe she's just a virtuoso at art. Being that she didn't have much else to do at her home estate, maybe she's just an extremely skilled artist.
And Even the Dream.
I'm troubled. I feel like she's definitely has
Keep personal life out of this, Manny.
ouch. I feel like she's definitely got a magical power, but I don't think that it's associated with Stormlight. Like, I feel like literature, art, and all of that stuff is not even something that even women really appreciate that much. Like, she even mentions, like, even Jasna doesn't have much of an appreciation for art. But it's really interesting because the drawings that she does have an effect on the men in her life, like the captain of the ship and even the guy that helps her when she draws him, and he really appreciates it. So I feel like there's definitely some sort of power that she has. Maybe not necessarily it is her art, but like an allure or charming ability that is really beyond a normal person, but not really anything to do with Stormlight.
All right, so what's your wager? What's your bet? Hurry up, man.
I'm gonna go with yes.
So that would be a no then.
He said yes.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Like, I'm stuck between yes and no. Like, I don't know which one it would actually fall between.
I'm stuck so hard.
Well, if it
between
doesn't
yes
use
and no.
Stormlight,
I'm gonna say no then. I'm gonna say no. It doesn't
fix that.
You're right. I'm gonna say no.
All right, Josh and I have to stay out of this one.
Yep.
Okay. So we got 4.
All right.
All right, we got some wagers. We're gonna have to get in a wager that's gonna be a little bit more forecasted a little later, so that Josh and I can participate.
Yeah.
Well, that's not our fault. That's your fault.
So whatever, dude. All right, so we're coming up to the close on this, so we gotta just talk through Shallan. But if we don't finish, we'll just keep talking her next episode. That's not a big deal.
Okay.
And Next episode should be interesting because instead of filming it next week like we intended to, we're going to film it right after this. And we're going to do a shot in between while we're not on the air. Ha! So, yeah, so that's really going to happen. So, before we close out, I think let's close it here. Let's start next episode. Let's talk Shallan through the end, and then let's talk Kaladin and get intense. You know, cool. I feel like the captain over here has some insights he needs to provide. It's coming out of him. I just could tell. And I feel like the cherry over here is regretting that he read the entire fucking book. Because he's like, what the fuck was this chapter again? Now I gotta think all the way back to this goddamn shit.
But not only that, he also has to hold back on things that he knows already that we're speculating.
The good thing about me is
torturous.
Yeah,
I can just see Josh busting with things he wants to say, and he's like, not yet. Not yet.
Can't do it.
The funny thing is I'm really happy that I'm rereading it with you guys because the last time I read the book was years ago. So I remember a lot of the big stuff, but a lot of the some of the stuff that we're talking about is like I'm like hitting it again, like almost like it's a fresh thing. So I'm really appreciative of that. So I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be fantastic when we're all on book 3, though.
Yeah, I agree.
Every week we're going to be like, oh, I got so much to effing say. So thank you, Brandon Sanderson, for being a boss writer.
So yeah, pretty much what we're saying is definitely read this because it's phenomenal.
Yeah. So thanks, Brandon Sanderson. We're going to close out today. Before I do, I just want to go around circle real quick. In case you're looking to find out if Brett Williams could actually direct, because we do call him the director, and he can actually direct. He does have... Brett, if you want to go ahead, I think you got website and some other stuff.
Yeah, I do have a website with my one short film on it. BrettWilliamsFilm.com. Also, you can catch me at Twitter at BWilliamsFilm.
And if you do follow his Twitter, I will let you know that it can be entertaining at times. Only because I talk.
It can be what?
Entertaining at times because I talk to you every day and you're always entertaining. It's super entertaining.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Round table? No?
Nope.
No?
No projects
Not yet.
currently.
All right. Well, some of these guys may have projects later, but right now we're all
Look forward.
We're all just fucking doing
Definitely
jobs.
keep an eye out for Andrew's writing and Jeff's writing.
Coming along.
They're very good writers, the both of them.
And keep in mind
hopefully
that
got books
occasionally
coming out
you
soon.
might see a model walking down the street with this fluffed dark hair and glasses, wearing extremely Asian-inspired outfits, and looking like a boss. And his name's Ian the Dream. So if you see a guy like that, yell out as hard as you can. Ian the Dream! I knew I found you.
Yeah, you can try. We'll see who can scream louder.
I'm telling you,
I'll yell you.
No, listen. If you do find him, though, if you just see a guy that you're imagining right now, because we don't have the footage up on YouTube yet, and you find Ian the Dream and you yell it, that would be absolutely hilarious and I think kind of funny. He's wearing glasses. He's pretty tall, very pasty white. So fucking pasty white. He's like a ghost, but he's got little freckles.
He's like Casper the Friendly Ghost.
And then he's got kind of like dark light brown eyes and
dark light brown eyes.
I'm making it confusing.
All right, let's wrap this up.
And we're done. All right, gentlemen, we're done for the day. We'll catch you on the next episode of Lit Literature.
Cheers.
Catch you on the flip side.
Cheers.
Oh, I finished my drink. Ah.